Welcome back to the Ishaan S Show. Today we're going to be talking about the political showdown over COVID-19 and the reopening process so far. The July jobs report is out. How did the Biden administration do? And there's an update on infrastructure. We'll be talking about those stories and more today, August 6th, 2021. From Anchor by Spotify, this is the Ishaan S Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics from the perspective of a 15-year-old. With me, your host, Ishaan. All right, welcome back to episode 15 of the Ishaan S Show, and our last Friday before the season finale. Speaking of which, if you haven't already heard, the Ishaan S Show will be concluding its first season, and our season finale is going to be on Tuesday, August 10th. Get that on your calendars. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into today's episode. So, of all the topics that I've covered here on this show, most of them have been real political, electoral, or policy-based topics, like Kamala Harris's trip to Guatemala, or the infrastructure bill, or potential presidential candidates. Through it all, there's been one thing that's dominated our news cycle, and is beginning to come up in the political section of our news more and more, and that's COVID. Throughout my show, I've refrained from really dedicating an episode to COVID-19, no matter how much it dominates the news. I've just always stayed away from it, and this is because of my opinion on the politicization of COVID. Full disclosure, I simply do not like the idea of COVID-19 becoming such a partisan hot topic. This is a medical crisis that our country and countries around the world were hit with, and it's something that we need to get out of. I've known people who've gotten COVID, and I'm sure people listening have also known somebody, or maybe know somebody who knows somebody. But no matter what, through it all, I'm sure that no COVID patient has ever cared about politics when they were sick, or none of their, the people that were stressed out for them. So personally, I just never liked the idea of talking about COVID here on a political analysis show. But I see it everywhere. I see it on MSNBC and Fox News and CNN and NPR and it's in articles everywhere and in other political podcasts. And it's starting to look like it's really just the news, political news is now beginning to center around COVID more and more. And that's because of the division that it's caused. So I finally gave in. So ever since we began hearing COVID-19 or coronavirus on our morning headlines back in February and March of last year, everyone had an opinion on it. I remember when people were really worried about it, I was. And I remember when people started stocking up on meat, signing up for streaming subscriptions, and hoarding toilet paper. Governors, mayors, legislators across the country began asking themselves what they're going to do. Back then, I'd say because this was so foreign for us, we all had the same opinion. We're just going to be stressed out for the next couple of weeks or months. And we only say weeks and months because of just the uncertainty of how long it's going to last. But in a matter of weeks and months, two clear opposing sides started to emerge. One side was like, COVID ain't a big issue. We're not going to cancel our normal lives for it. The other side was more like, COVID's super dangerous. If you do not stay away from people, you are at risk of dying. Those beliefs are grossly simplified, but they paint a picture of which two sides started to emerge. And those sides still remain through new stories and through new hot topics, political topics that are starting to emerge. Now, in terms of the polarization, it wouldn't be fair of me to characterize one party or one group of people of having one belief and the other side with theirs. That said, there was a greater tendency that started to emerge of Democrats becoming full-on precautious And with names like Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, Andrew Cuomo from New York, Gavin Newsom from California, they come to mind. And then we have the Republicans, who tended to take a more laissez-faire approach when it came to shutting down a state, businesses, etc. Here I think of former President Trump, Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida, and Kristi Noem from South Dakota. Now, we all live in 50 different states with 50 different governors and legislatures, and therefore there are very different policies pertaining to the people and our neighbors in each of these places. So we can't really paint all people under one belt. But something that does provide us a little more insight into how COVID became a political issue is the fact that throughout COVID, we've had two very different presidents with drastically different approaches to COVID, and it all happened during an election. One that did remain was partisan opposition of COVID, not of COVID, but to an administration, and the criticism for each of these administrations from the other side. That's something that stayed for each side. These days, the political battle over COVID-19 has become more and more annoying and toxic. And I don't mean that, the discussion of protecting lives is annoying, but the toxicity that's coming from it, that's what's getting on people's nerves. And this comes from both sides of the aisle. In more recent news, the topic of vaccination has hit the political bulletin in storm. Our leaders want us to get vaccinated. That's a wide consensus, Democrat or Republican. And the science shows that the vaccine is the best preventative measure from the awful Delta variant that's spreading fast across America right now. That's a fact. Our leaders want us to get vaccinated. But the method of getting that message out to people and getting people vaccinated has become part of a political discussion. In the federal government, President Biden and leaders in his administration issued vaccination mandates for all federal employees. And should an employee not wish to get vaccinated, then they would have to undergo regular COVID testing to ensure that they are not going to spread the virus to their coworkers. Other states, primarily Democrat, and many businesses like Google and Facebook are beginning to take that approach now with their own people, now that they're beginning to go back to work and America's reopening. For these vaccine mandates on the government's part, Biden has faced a lot of Republican backlash for mandating the vaccine. And a lot of Republican governors are paying lip service to the federal government's request to issue similar mandates or, regulations. Their reasoning or justification is that they want to respect the liberties of their constituents and that their constituents will do whatever is best for them. While at the same time, these governors are also encouraging their people to get vaccinated. Recently, the governors of Texas and Florida issued executive orders, I believe, that forbid any businesses to schools or other individual entities like them from issuing mask mandates for all people vaccinated or unvaccinated. Now, a lot of this came in response to Democrat efforts to zero in on the spread of the Delta variant by mandating vaccines in day-to-day life, like they did in New York City, where Bill de Blasio now has a standing order in place that requires proof of vaccination when going to places like gyms, restaurants, and other places. So much of the effort to prevent COVID these days has just been petty rivalries trying to tangle the other side's effort all the time. And until we can reach a proper consensus on the vaccine thing and get more people protected from COVID, our lifestyles may not have an easy time going back to normal. Soon, many kids across America, including myself, are going to go back to school. And when we do, and like our parents going back to work as well, I'm sure that most don't really care about the partisan politics behind COVID prevention. We really just want to know the safest way for us and our peers to get back to our normal lives. So, one thing I realized through this segment is I wasn't able to comfortably get into the politics behind COVID. And I'd say that's just mainly because of where our country is right now with COVID. No matter what you say, there is going to be someone you are going to upset. And I know that with any political topic, but with COVID, that's a little more likely. And that's just because of how prevalent COVID is in our lives right now. So I'm not able to really comfortably speak too much on COVID without seeming to look like giving my opinion. But I hope I was able to shed some light on the reasoning behind the decisions that our leaders are making when trying to stop the spread of the virus. I don't think our leaders don't care about us or put their rivalries above us, but they can do a much better job hearing the other side and getting things done, like trying to prevent this virus. Now that's a look at politics and COVID. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the July jobs report and provide an update on our infrastructure package. All of that after this short break. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. All right, I'm back from the break. So now I want to switch over our focus from COVID as a public health crisis and look at COVID as an economic crisis. I've covered the jobs report before on this show. I think it was for the month of May. That was in our first episode. But today we're going to talk about the July jobs report. So COVID had a big impact on the economy for many people. And for several years before COVID actually hit in 2020, the U.S. economy was doing a decent job in terms of overall growth. And it was reporting pretty decent job numbers, especially after the 2008 financial crisis. But then COVID hit and things went bad. And the economy has been trying to recover ever since. One major casualty in the COVID recession was the jobs market. Like a lot of jobs, millions of people filed for unemployment, and like I said, much of the COVID recovery has been reopening the country for more people to return to their jobs. In terms of when we talk about getting people vaccinated or trying to limit the spread or reopening businesses, it's all mainly aimed at getting people back to work because they've been unable to do so for the past however many months because it's just been unsafe for them. And right now, any efforts to reopen our country and getting more jobs is purely based off getting the recovery, purely based off getting laid off people back into their jobs that they once held. So for the month of July, the U.S. economy added a pretty decent 943,000 jobs, and that was above most estimates from the Dow Jones and from other groups. And with that number, the 943,000, the unemployment rate fell to 5.4%. Now, compared to previous months, it must be said that that's a pretty big number, and one that hasn't been this high since August of last year when the economy added 1 million new jobs. President Biden and his administration have really tried to cash in on these numbers. Here's President Biden at a press conference earlier this morning talking about the most recent jobs report. Take a listen.
As we vaccinated America, we developed our economic tools to help our economy recover. As a result, in the past 3 months, we've created, on average, 832,000 new jobs per month since sworn in. That's compared to 50,000 jobs in the last 3 months of the previous administration. Look, even so, my message today is not one of celebration. It's one to remind us we got a lot of hard work left to be done, both to beat the Delta variant and to continue our advance of economic recovery.
So those are some pretty decent numbers, I'd say. And throughout the summer, it's been an indicator that our country is on that path of recovery. Now, since May of last year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is reporting that a grand total of 16.7 million jobs have been added to the economy, but 5.7 million more are required to return to pre-pandemic levels. I will say that these numbers are near complementary, and the Biden administration does get to control the narrative and messaging since it's their number. But it shouldn't be celebrated all the way. A consistent thing that I've said just in terms of jobs here on the show is that while a ton of jobs are in fact getting added back to the economy, many of those jobs are just recovery jobs, not real job growth. What I mean is a lot of those jobs are jobs that were lost in like March or April of 2020 that are now finally returning back. These are people that are finally returning to the workforce. So not a lot of these jobs are new and real new jobs that are being created. I think once we can safely say that we've recovered from the pandemic, economically speaking, then we'll be able to get a better look at Biden's real job-adding skills. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and head on over to another story that I wanted to talk about. Now, this story has been a recurring one on this show for a while, and it's something that I like to talk about, and that's infrastructure. So, quick review for listeners who do not know. Late in June, Biden, Democrats, and Republicans all reached an agreement on a bipartisan infrastructure plan that's been a staple of Biden's agenda and invests into rebuilding America and building more building of America, if that makes sense. This package is very close to getting a vote. It's $1 trillion, and it's what I like to call the compromise bill, since it was introduced by a bipartisan group of senators. There's been a long thing that's been going on with infrastructure. It's been going on since May, with Democrats and with Biden and Republicans first trying to negotiate, then those negotiations failing, and then Biden looking to these bipartisan senators, and then to get a deal. There's a lot that's been going on, and this package that we're talking about, the $1 trillion package, is from that bipartisan group of senators who negotiated their way through this. So that's why I'm calling it the compromise package. Now, President Biden, who's played a pretty big role in the planning of this package, said that this package is, quote, it's a bill that would end years of gridlock in Washington and create millions of good-paying jobs, put America on a new path to win the race for the economy in the 21st century. So this bill is pretty good in terms of like just the speed that it's been introduced through. A lot of the contents of the bill do have wide support. Most Americans do approve of this bill. If I'm not wrong, based on polling, a good number of Americans do support this bill, and it has support on Capitol Hill. Now, it's based on most reports, it is ready to pass, and it's expected to get a few procedural votes will happen, and more will be conducted over this weekend in terms of getting real votes on the bill. Now, the plan has pretty much a lot of support from both sides of the aisle, like I said. Democrats like it because it's Biden's plan, and there are at least 10 Republicans on board to make it a filibuster-proof majority. So that works out perfectly. Now, where things get a little dicey is that Democrats actually introduced a $3.5 trillion reconciliation plan. This plan is basically the Democrat wish list of items that they could not get into the actual infrastructure bill since Republicans vetoed them in negotiations. This bill checks those boxes for many progressive Democrats and was used as a means to catering to their wishes. And it basically has a bunch of policies that Biden wanted, but he wasn't able to get into this package either. So with that, this reconciliation bill would not need a 60-vote majority. Rather, through some Senate rules, this $3.5 trillion package could get passed simply without any Republican support, with just 50 Democrat votes in the Senate and Vice President Kamala Harris to break the tie. And while the compromise bill doesn't look like it's going to struggle when trying to get it passed, the $3.5 trillion package does look like it may not have a lot to run off of, since within the 50 Democrat-member Senate caucus, 2 Democrats are complete wild cards in their votes, Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. These 2 Democrats have wielded a lot of power in the Senate and have caused a lot of trouble for Chuck Schumer as he tries to pass the Democrats' and Biden's agenda. I don't have a lot of reporting on where they stand on this bill, but if I'm not wrong, Joe Manchin did flirt with the idea of voting for it, and Kyrsten Sinema did come out in opposition of it without giving us a clear picture of where she stands. And that's an update on infrastructure for you. If you want to know more about the compromise bill or the $3.5 trillion package, then listen to episode 3 of the Ishaan S Show to hear more about the compromise bill, or go over to the IshaanSshow.com to read up on the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. That does it for us today, guys. If you liked this episode and liked my analysis, then follow our Instagram and Twitter at The Ishaan S Show for breaking news posts and updates about the show. Check out our new website, theishaanshow.com, for all new episodes and the brand new political news blog. DM me on social media or email me if you have episode topic suggestions. And of course, share this episode and all the others with your friends and family. Thank you so much for all your support, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday for the season finale of the Ishaan S Show. Bye.